That's nice.
Yes.
Alright, today is an interesting day that I didn't see coming. One of the only, hang on, this is... So I started a bit of outreach to a lot of different creators that I follow because I realized, like, perhaps the last vestige of brute force growth that you can do in personal branding and content creation is collaborations. Because there's so many people now to collaborate with that, like, even if it's sheerly just a numbers game with horrible disadvantages and chances, you can just reach out to a ton of people. But somehow I reached out to like 2 people and both of them responded, and one of them is near where I'm at now, and his name is Bolian.
Do you recall anybody driving past you really fast in the last few days? This year's winner, Ed Bolian.
Ed Bolian from Atlanta.
Bolian. Ed Bolian.
Ed Bolian. Some New Mexicans want the Attorney General to criminally charge an Atlanta man.
Ed Bolian may look like a buttoned-up businessman, but he's actually a daredevil.
What makes someone want to do this?
If you don't know who that is, I believe he currently holds the cannonball world record for New York to LA. In like 28 hours or some nonsense like that. He runs VinWIKI, which is a like Carfax, except if Carfax is actually useful. And then he also, as a result of that, runs the VinWIKI YouTube channel, which is just like 2 of my favorite things put together. Car storytelling. It's great. So I emailed him asking, hey, working on personal branding stuff. Don't know if you remember, we met briefly at Caffeine and Octane last year. Would I be able to tell some stories? And he just said, send me some outlines. And so I sent him to his super secret email, and he responded, invited me to film, which is today. Go personal branding, I suppose. But I want to go to a coffee shop in that area a little early till the moment of truth, which should be at about 11 a.m. At an Airbnb now, and it is so nice. I never want to pay for a hotel again. I got a garage, I got a key fob for Maroon. Okay, wait, I'm just listing all the things the hotel has. Welcome to the scenic Alpharetta, Georgia. I actually passed through the town, which was back there, but as it stands, it's a very, very nice looking place. A low biking spots. Nevertheless, we are 5 minutes away from our destination, and 5 minutes away from finding out if this is all just one elaborate practical joke. This is a slow reveal. I had a question though, because I was like looking at all of this stuff. What happened
There.
here?
2004 Lamborghini Gallardo, my first one that I had for my rental car fleet. It was rented out for the winter to an event planner in Florida that was organizing a large exotic car show, and he drove it rather abusively, resulting in shooting 2.5 pistons out through different parts of the motor. It resulted in a very expensive coffee table.
So you had a rental fleet?
I did, yeah. When I was in college, I started an exotic car rental company called Supercar Rentals out of my dorm room at Georgia Tech. Back then, you could get stated income exotic car loans. So I figured it was as good a time as any to go bankrupt. Fortunately, it all worked out. Made all the payments, and it actually was what made a lot of the future car flips possible, because I had such great car credit that I could buy and finance really whatever I wanted to.
Oh, interesting. What a thing to do as a college student in the dorm room.
We've had a lot of fun. Yeah, the VinWIKI set has grown from just a handful of these things that we threw in the corner of the warehouse when we first started filming these, and I've actually moved the set twice since then. So now it's in a room above my garage. But it's been good. It's served its purpose and immortalized a lot of stories.
Yeah. There's some colors on certain things, like, not to compare it to a bicycle, but like my bike's colors that usually comes with factory also have the same phenomenon, but they look so massively different in pictures versus real life.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard color to photograph. As far as I can tell, there's 4 or 5 Mercedes this color in the world. At least one, the press car that was on Top Gear, has been crashed, And so this is certainly the only one in the US. There's another manual car in Australia. There's a pretty much identical car to this spec still in the UK, but unfortunately its owner died, and the widow loves keeping it in the garage just to walk past and look, so she won't sell it. And so it's, I guess it's to where it will stay. And
So this is number 3?
it's the third manual, the fifth LP640. So I had 2 E-Gear ones before that. When I sold my last one, I became concerned that they were going to go up in value so much that I wouldn't be able to justify buying my favorite car back.
Yeah.
And so I was glad to find one and make it the way I wanted, and I've been very pleased with it. Now it's a big, bulky car, and so it's not the thing you just go toss around and go crazy with.
You had a bit of an interesting moment in this, right? That sponsor came in handy.
Yeah, we got a bit of a reckless driving charge in the great state of Arkansas, so hopefully that doesn't prove to be too bad. I was very pleased to get this about 3 weeks ago, the 2009 430 Scuderia, and I've already put 6,000 miles on it, doing a round-trip drive to Vegas and back via Nashville and Colorado. So had a great experience with it with some good friends. My wife did the first part of it, and a friend flew into Dallas and finished out the run to Vegas. You know, I love long, epic road trips in cars, as we just talked about with the Fiesta, and I just think it's the best way to get to know a car. Unfortunately, it behaved itself quite well. We didn't really have it break. That's, to me, just the best spec a Ferrari could have. And you know, it's a great car, and I think these represent just a great value relative to kind of the full spectrum of how much different Ferraris cost right now. And it's actually been right at a year since I bought this Porsche 993. It's an RS Tribute, so it's just a 993 Carrera, but it's been all redone to look like an RS. And so if it was real, it'd be worth about 500 grand. In its current form, it's worth about 50. It slid off a track in 2009, and Carfax inaccurately labeled it as being totaled. And so the guy sold it thinking because of that the next owner was going to get a salvage title, even though he didn't have a salvage title and his insurance company hadn't bought it from him. And so that's not how that works. So he sold it way too cheap. I was the first person to respond saying, I'll take it tomorrow with no PPI. And he sold it to me. So It's been a really fun thing to have around. It gets a great positive response anywhere you take it. It's not a very fast car, but just it's so analog and so pure that it's just a really pleasant car to drive. I picked up this S65 and that Halloween decoration mummy behind it to haul my son around. He's 4, and I needed something that didn't constitute illegally putting him in a 2-seat car or strapping into an enlarged gas tank. These 3 cars here are the 3 that we've done New York to LA runs in. So the left one is the CL55 that in 2013 we set the New York to LA Cannonball record in. And it was 28 hours, 50 minutes, 100.3 mile an hour average coast to coast. The middle car is a 1985 Audi 4000S Quattro. In the 85, they sold 6 in Jacksonville and 6 in Atlanta that were Cannonball edition. Brock Yates hand-signed all the trunk lids. That one's number 1 of 12. As best I can tell, number 1 and number 11 are the only 2 to still exist. Number 11's in Seattle. 02 S55 has 12 owners, 2 accidents, some frame damage, a salvage title, airbags previously deployed, and a lot of fun in its life. I bought it for $1,500 on Craigslist, and we won the 2015 running of the 2904 in it and set the world record for driving from New York to Los Angeles in a competitive event. Obviously, when we just did the record in 2013, it was just us. But I found out that there were some crazy people that went out and did it, and I really wanted to beat 32 hours 7 minutes, which was the fastest time up to 83 when they stopped doing competitive events across the country. And so it was really cool to set another record in a very, very terrible car. And mechanically, we made it quite good, but cosmetically, as you can see, it is utterly destroyed. The paint has failed in a very, very strange and unique way. It's kind of shattered, and I think it's because of how compromised the clear coat was, or just that it wasn't ever put back on during one of the repaints. But it's a really, really terrible car that I love quite dearly.
I actually had confusion about this because I think I saw the story.
Yeah.
The guy that bought the RV that gave him a lot of, like, set on fire multiple times or something like that.
Oh yeah. John Ficarra, who organizes the 2904, had bought an RV, an orange one, for that race, and he also was campaigning Oldsmobile Silhouette minivan that they had kind of made to look like the Starship Enterprise. He ended up having to abandon that as they rescued the on fire motorhome, and so he didn't finish the event.
That was a perfectly normal English sentence. Actually, are they fitted out with the same kit, or does this have a little bit more of the gadgets on it?
This has a few more gadgets, and that has kind of a better layout. Honestly, because we learned so much from this run, that car I'd say is better prepared. The way the fuel system works is awesome. It's really, really good. It's all one thing. This requires transfer pumps and routing through the filler neck. Now that being said, we didn't sufficiently baffle this one, so we had to completely delete the secondary evap system. So if you brake or turn right, it shoots gasoline out of a vent we had to create, and just straight on the side of the road. That was the only solution to make it as we engineered this at the final moment. As long as you keep going fast and straight, no big deal.
Or left? Is left?
Yeah, left's okay.
All right.
So yeah, that's the current collection. My wife drives a Range Rover, and we found this house a few months ago, and it was just, such a perfect layout. Problem is, with construction costs the way they are right now, building something like this would cost me as much as adding another cool car. So I couldn't justify doing that, so I really wanted to find one where I wasn't really paying a premium. But shopping for big garage houses is utter misery and nearly impossible. So when this one popped up, we bought it the next day.
Wow, that is a decisive. Wow.
You know what you want, you know what you want.
Being decisive seems to have worked out reasonably well.
Yes.
I suppose.
I hope I told the stories relatively coherently.
You did a
which
good job, yeah.
Sometimes that's not my strongest suit.
I would say it was considerably better than the average.
Really?
Absolutely.
Whoa! What? Speaking of, I guess, all the stories in general, what would be the overarching, triumphant ones that you just love?
It's hard. Some of Casey Push's stories of the philanthropy that he's done through Genius Garage, I've really liked. Some of the craziness from Doug Tabbitt and his driving. And generally, Rob Pitts will come in here and tell one of his crazy rabbit stories about the car business. And then we'll spend, the next 10 minutes thinking of crazy one-liners. Yeah. It's not always the best ones that get the most views, because it's YouTube. It comes down to clickbait titles and the way the algorithm treats it and exactly how long it is on that day or whatever. So it's been a very interestingly educational experience.
I imagine so. Well, at least you get to see them all.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether or not the suggested box serves it to me, I now know which ones to actively look for. So that's good.
I appreciate you coming out, and thank you for the stories.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Okay, that just happened.